Morty and the Teacher's Apples. Morty is a very mischievous mouse who always does very mischievous things. Morty was scampering to school with Ben and Fred. These best buddies, backpacks bouncing, they chased around trying to jump on each other's swinging tails. They slowly made progress toward the playground. Hey, Morty stopped short and was staring at Albert's apple orchard. Apple harvest almost over the smells of apples, sight of fresh dew on the grass, and the fallen apples gave Morty a very mischievous idea. Remember when Mr. Albert yelled at us for picking his apples? Ben and Fred remembered that day well, and how Mr. Albert's whiskers twitched with anger as he screamed at them. He said, "You can have any that fall to the ground, but picked my apples is stealing," Morty continued. "I know just what to do with those rotten apples. We'll make applesauce for Miss Snickerwise." Soon, Ben, Fred, and Morty were scrambling around the orchard, picking up overripe and worm-eating apples, lots of apples. They filled their backpacks until they were nearly too heavy to carry. "Come on, let's hurry," Morty called over his shoulder as he led the way to the teacher parking lot. Just as he knew she would, Miss Snickerwise had left the door unlocked on her sleek, red two-seater mouse mini. Discreetly, 3 third-grade mice, Morty, Ben, and Fred again filling the car with apples. "We're going to need lots of more apples," Ben said as he pulled the last mushy apples from his backpack. "Right," Morty agreed. "Let's get more before the bell rings." "We've got to hurry," Fred exclaimed. "I already have a tardy for this week." Racing back to the orchard, they loaded their backpack again. At the car, they closed the mouse mini store and crashed a window, shoving Apple through the opening. By the time they settled into their desks, the car was full with fragrant, decaying apples. The sun was getting high in the sky, warming up the car and cooking the apples. Miss Snickerwise knows so much stuff that she may just be the smartest mouse in the world, Morty once told his mother. He loved Miss Snickerwise's big smile and how she laughed idly at his silly tricks. Sometimes she gave cheesy truths for correct answers, and she always explained things well. But Miss Snickerwise can be incredibly crabby lately. Last week, she got angry when Morty didn't finish his assignment on time, and there was an edge to her voice when she told Morty to pay attention. She even called his mother when Morty washed catsup packets on the playground. During recess, Morty was thinking of the trick that he, Fred, and Ben had pulled with the apples when he saw the janitor washing garbage cans behind the school with a long hose. When the janitor was finished, Morty grabbed the hose and scrambled to the teacher parking lot to stick the running hose in the window of the mini. Adding water to the warm apples made the smell even stronger. A sore hope, Miss Snickerwise liked applesauce as much as the flies do. Morty thought, as he tired to spray the gathering worm of flies with water. Back in class, Morty noticed that Miss Sneakerweiser looked sad and tired. "There will be no chess club after school today," she announced. "I need to leave right away to sit with my mother, who is in the hospital. Also, I am a little behind correcting things project. My mother has been very sick." Morty noticed that tears poured in her eyes. Morty felt sick in his stomach, not the kind of sick you get from munching on a few overripe apples on the way to school. The kind of sick you get when you really regret something you've done. He looked over at Ben and Fred. Ben was white as a ghost mouse, and Fred was staring at the floor. Luckily, Miss Sneakerweiser dismissed the class for a free exercise period before school ended for the day. With only 45 minutes, Morty had to act fast. On his way outside, Morty scrambled to the janitor's closet to get soap, a bucket, and a spoon. The hose was still where Morty had left it. Morty grabbed the nozzle and raced to his teacher's mouse mini. There was no time to whistle. Opening the door, sticky applesauce spilled out into the parking lot gobs and the gobs of applesauce and the flies, seeds, apple skins, and even the few worms. What a mess! Morty turned on the hose and started grubbing. He rolled down all the windows, just hoping the sun was still warm enough to dry out the inside of the car. Morty scrubbed like he's a hero mega mouse, 1,000 times faster and stronger than a normal mouse. He even washed the outside of the car as he scrambled around clean. Morty's mind raced. How would explain to Miss Sneakerweiser that he had filled her car with rotting apples? How would he tell her that he had been angry at her for being so tough on him? Now that he thought about it, she wasn't any harder on him than any other mouse in the class. How was Morty to know that Miss Sneakerweiser's mom was sick? Deep inside, Morty knew his prank was just as rotten as the apples, and Miss Sneakerweiser did not deserve it, even if she really had been tough him. There was sweat trickling down Morty's back when the school bell rang. Morty gathered up the hose and cleaning supplies and started toward the janitor's closet. Miss Sneakerweiser was approached her car. Morty smiled when she said, "Morty, my car looks so clean and nice. Did you leave the playground to wash my car?" This was Morty's big chance. He could simply answer yes and come out smelling like a rose, as his mother would say, but Morty smelled like overripe apples, and he always tells the truth. Before Morty could answer, Miss Sneakerweiser opened the door and looked inside. "It just sparkles," she said, "and it smells like you see the fresh apple air. Freshener, I love the smell." Morty was staring at an apple seed stuck to his paw when he spoke up. "Miss Sneakerweiser, before I wash your car, I played a pretty mean trick on you." Miss Sneakerweiser was looking at Morty now, raising an eyebrow in a puzzled expression that prompted Morty to continue. I filled your cart with old apple from Mr. Albert's orchard. I added water and the sun cooked up a nasty batch on applesauce in your mouth, Minnie. Morty looked in her eyes. I'm really sorry. Miss Sneakerweiser's face showed no emotion. She looked in her car again and ran her paw over the dashboard, and it wasn't even sticky. Miss Sneakerweiser smiled at Morty and patted his head. I love my clean car, she said. I accept your apology. But next time you decide to leave the playground, you really need to tell me. Then, she asked, Morty, will you do me a little favor? When you get home, will you tell your mother thank you? Now Morty's face looked puzzled. Miss Sneakerweiser smiled on her big twinkling smiles and explained, Your mom was done a fine job of teaching you to wash the dishes after you cook. Morty laughed as Miss Sneakerweiser drove off in her immaculate mouse Minnie. Then he returned the cleaning supplies and found Ben and Fred to walk home. He had to hold his nose. When they passed the Albert apple orchard, he realized that he did not like the smell of warm rotten apples. In fact, Morty thought he wouldn't mind it if he never smelled apples again.